Good morning, wonderful people. Right off the top, I just want to take a quick moment to thank everyone for your support over the past 2 years now, which is crazy to even say out loud. I was feeling disappointed in myself for missing a few weeks these past couple of months between traveling and holidays and work and yada yada. But I realized this morning I can also be proud to have reached 130 episodes. I didn't think I was going to make it past episode 10. And without some of y'all, a few of you specifically, I never would have done that. So thank you very much. Anywho, let's get into it. This is the story of Aryndel Castro. My name is Eli, and this is Murder in the Morning. My sources for today include Uncover.com, CBS, Greenwich Times, Bronx News 12, the CT Post, and any others I will list down below. If you happen to be around for last week's episode, you've already heard this, but I do try to have a purpose for putting out these episodes, mainly the hope that we don't forget human stories and possibly solve those that are lost to time. And today's story is what I hope to see many times over. It may not have a perfect ending, but it is a step in the right direction. That never giving up aspect of some people. Nearly 12 years ago, in September of 2013, 24-year-old Aryndel Castro disappeared without a word, leaving his friends and tight-knit family to wonder where their loved one was. Everyone close to Aryndel knew he wouldn't simply leave, and soon his disappearance appeared on police radar. This young man took nothing with him if he did leave on his own accord. He told no one, and he hasn't appeared anywhere else. The circumstances of Aryndel's vanishing was shrouded in mystery. Why now? He's so young, he's 24. Who might want to hurt Aryn? Does he have any enemies? And most importantly, where is he? And sorry, I didn't explain that up top, but Aryndel is spelled Aryndel, and in one of the interviews I watched, his family and even some reporters refer to him as Aaron, so I will too occasionally. Some people assumed that he was involved with shady people around town. Not so good characters, you might say, but even if he was, that's not the picture I'd like to paint. According to luzdePaz.com, quote, Aryndel was born in Aguadilla, Puerto Rico on November 7th of 1988, but he had relocated to the Bridgeport area at an early age with his family. He was a joyful young man and considered a jack of all trades. He was always with his family, and they knew they could count on him through thick and thin. He was always up for a challenge and had the ability to do whatever he put his mind to, end quote. Initially, Aryndel was a missing persons case. But as the days turned into weeks, turned into months, and then years dragged on, all hope was drained, and a decision was made to transfer the case to the Bridgeport Homicide Unit. I apologize, I don't have the exact date or even year this happened. Coverage of this case is very limited to a few local news sources, of which a majority are behind paywalls. When his case arrived at Homicide, fortunes changed when it landed in the lap of Lieutenant Christopher Lemaine, who felt a connection and a deep desire to bring Aryndel home, no matter how long it took. And I don't have the exact quote, but he made a promise to the family that he would not give up. And a long time it would take. 8 years after Aryndel disappeared without a trace, Christopher Lemaine struck gold. Someone claiming to know exactly what happened came forward. Mr. Terrence Boyd came forward and told Lemaine that Sean Gibson of Hamden had killed Aryndel with the help of himself, and they proceeded to bury his body under an unknowing relative's garage floor. Quote, I'll put it in a nutshell for you, Boyd told police. This guy, Castro, stole some tools from Sean. He didn't like it. He told me to go get the guy. I brought him to the house, beat him to death, and then buried him. End quote. According to the CT Post, although living in Hamden, Gibson owned a couple of multi-family homes in Bridgeport. According to the affidavit, Boyd told detectives that he and Sean Gibson had brought Castro to a rooming house on Noble Avenue that Gibson owned, and Gibson began beating Castro with his fists. Quote, police say the suspects engaged in an elaborate cleanup effort, purchasing cleaning supplies on multiple occasions at the Home Depot. They also allegedly rented vans from the Home Depot and U-Haul to move Castro's body more than once in the days following the murder. Later, upon Sean Gibson's arrest, he told Lieutenant Christopher Lemaine that he had buried Castro's body under a relative's garage. And when Lemaine arrived at the garage, he spent hours digging and digging and digging under this detached building. He continued until spectators could no longer see him, and then, quote, Detective Chris Lemaine emerged from the crawl space with Castro's remains, which were later confirmed by a medical examiner, end quote. According to Bronx News 12, police say that Gibson led them to the body as part of a deal to get his bond reduced to something he could post. In this case, $250,000, along with GPS monitoring. However, bonds in murder cases are usually at least $1 million. Of course, the family was not happy about this, but they were extremely relieved to find some sort of closure. And to make things harder, 47-year-old Mr. Gibson here pled guilty for a reduced sentence of 20 years, suspended after 12 with 5 years probation. Not even close to enough, if you ask me, or literally anyone. Now, on top of that, this wasn't Terrence Boyd's first run-in with murder. Quote, Boyd, who was 57, had just finished serving a prison term for a home invasion in New Canaan in the 1980s, in which he struck a 63-year-old housewife in the head and then drowned her in her swimming pool, end quote. As of May 2024, the most recent article that I was able to find stated that Terrence Boyd was still awaiting trial for the murder of Aryndel Castro. Bronx News 12 reported that Castro's family thanked Christopher Lemaine for keeping his promise from over 8 years ago to never give up on the case. Quote, we can bury him somewhere. We can go see him, bring him flowers, and cry to him like we've always wanted, end quote. And that, my friends, is the story of Aryndel Castro. Again, I really do apologize for the shorter form episode, but many of these stories and cases simply aren't reported on, as many of us know. And I simply can't find everything I'd like to by myself, But for real, thank you so much for sticking around and listening in today. I hope you enjoyed the episode, the main episode, and if you'd like a bit more true crime, I invite you to stick around after the music. Okie dokie. Bye-bye. Heyo! I feel like every week now, lately, there's either been news of a breakthrough or a now solved cold case, and today's no different. Titled, Jack the Ripper's Victim's Relative Demands New Inquest After Possible DNA Breakthrough. Quote, a descendant of one of Jack the Ripper's victims has demanded a new inquest into one of history's most notorious serial killers after DNA evidence suggested the murderer was a Polish barber. The true identity of Jack the Ripper, whose grisly murders terrorized the murky slums of Whitechapel in East London in 1988, has been a mystery ever since. There have been dozens of suspects, from royalty and prime ministers down to bootmakers. After extracting DNA from a shawl recovered from the scene of one of the killings, Jack the Ripper sleuth Russell Edwards claimed in 2014 that the murderer was Aaron Kosminski, an immigrant from Poland who worked as a barber. The story goes that the shawl came from the murder scene of the Ripper's fourth victim, Catherine Eddowes, on September 3, 1988. At Edwards' request, Dr. Jari Luuthalainen, I hope I didn't say that right, so I'm sorry, a senior lecturer at Liverpool John Moores University, isolated 7 small segments of DNA from bloodstains on the shawl. These were matched with the DNA of Karen Miller, a direct descendant of Edo's, confirming her blood was in fact on the shawl. Quote, on the testing, the first result showed a 99.2% match, and since the DNA has 2 complementary strands, we went on and tested the other strand, which gave a perfect 100% match. Luhalainen told the Liverpool Echo newspaper. DNA from semen stains on the garment were then matched with a descendant of Kosminski. Edwards has demanded an inquest into the unsolved killing, saying the DNA evidence warrants this. Miller then backed the call in an interview with the Daily Mail published on Monday. Quote, the name Jack the Ripper has become sensationalized. It has gone down in history as this famous character, she told the paper. People have forgotten about the victims who did not have justice at the time. Now we need this inquest to legally name the killer, end quote. Miller added, having the real person legally named in a court which consider all the evidence would be a form of justice for the victims. Kosminski's defendants have also supported the inquest. According to the newspaper, Kosminski's great-great-great-niece Amanda Pavlos said, I'm more than happy to finally establish what really happened. However, some have cast doubt on Edwards' findings. The research has not been published in a peer-reviewed scientific journal, meaning that the claims cannot be independently verified or the methodology scrutinized. Under the law, it is up to the Attorney General to approve a further inquest. 2 years ago, the then Attorney General, Michael Ellis, refused the inquest, saying that there was not sufficient new evidence. Miller said on Monday the time was right to reopen the case. She added, it would mean a lot to me, to my family, to a lot of people to finally have this crime solved. Kosminski was born in Kladowa in central Poland on September 11, 1865. His family fled the Imperial Russian anti-Jewish programs and emigrated to East London in early 1980s and lived close to the murder scenes. Some reports say he was taken in by the police to be identified by a witness who had seen him with one of the victims. And although a positive identification was made, the witness refused to give incriminating evidence, meaning the police had little option but to release him. Kosminski then entered a workhouse in 1889 where he was described on admission as a destitute. He was discharged later that year, but soon ended up in a mental asylum. On March 24, 1919, he died from gangrene in an asylum and was buried 3 days later at East Ham Cemetery in East London. As CBS News previously reported, former FBI agent John Douglas referred to these homicides as, quote, lust murders, which mean the killer attacked the genital areas of the victims. And in Douglas's opinion, this was a way to act out his fantasy of domination, cruelty, and mutilation of women, end quote. Could you imagine if the infamous Jack the Ripper mystery was solved this year or next or any time in our lifetime? I mean, what a spectacle that would be. Just history in real time. Anywho, that is all I have for you wonderful, wonderful humans today. Again, I truly appreciate each and every one of your eardrums. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you next week. Okie dokie. Bye-bye. Love you.